This is the third shutdown that is implemented as a policy to take hostage the people's government and people who work for the government hostage. In another context, we would call that an act of kidnapping or terrorism. Let me read you from a 8/24/14 comment on CNN by the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell. The lead-in is, in his strongest words to date, Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, tried to quash talk that he would allow another government shutdown if he becomes Senate Majority Leader next year. Quote, "Of course not. Remember me," said McConnell. "I'm the guy that gets out of shutdowns." McConnell told CNN in an exclusive interview Wednesday. Quote, "It's a failed policy." The first shutdown that was done as a result of a strategy was when Bill Clinton refused to sign a bill that cut education deeply. And Newt Gingrich shut down the government for first 21 days and then 5 days, or a total of 26 days. The second shutdown was when the senator from Texas came over to the House and talked to a number of the House members and said, "We ought to shut down the government unless President Obama signs the repeal of the Affordable Care Act." No one thought that would happen. John Boehner was the speaker. He, after a number of days, 16 to be exact, of shutdown, he offered a bill. 3 people, among others, there were 140 plus Republicans who voted against opening up the government. Speaker Ryan, Whip Scalise, and the current Chief of Staff of the White House, Mick Mulvaney. We will be bringing to the floor, I will be bringing to the floor, 4 bills. There will be other bills, but 4 bills. These are Republican-passed bills, 92-6 through the United States Senate. These are not partisan bills. These are not our bills. But we want to open up the government, and therefore we are compromising by only offering Republican bills. These are Republican bills. These are not our bills. These are not our priorities. These are bills that the Republican Senate passed 92-6. Now, obviously, our Democrats in the Senate voted for them, but we're now going to offer them one by one. There's an opportunity for every American to see who wants government open. And our responsibility is not to do what the President of the United States tells us to do. Our responsibility is to do what we think is in the best interest of the American people and the effective and efficient operations of their government. It's an opportunity for every American to see who wants to open up government and end this Trump shutdown so that taxpayers can receive the tax funds in a timely manner, vulnerable families and children will receive their nutrition assistance, individuals and families won't face the prospect of eviction, and Americans can safely enjoy their national parks. So literally, there are $140 billion approximately in tax refunds that won't be able to be sent. The President now is going to order them to do what we think is illegal to do because he wants to act like a dictator. I am convinced that if Senator McConnell brings to the floor the 4 bills that we will pass this week, that they will pass the Senate. Your turn.
Mr. Leader, the President last week floated that he could use emergency powers to build the wall over the will of Congress. How would the House react if he were to proceed with that? And specifically, has there been discussion of bringing suit or some other specific reaction if he were to go down that road?
Mike, there has not been, as far as I know, other than sort of individual or group discussions, there has not been a leadership discussion about our reaction. Let me say that my reaction is that the President appears to believe that he can do individually that which previous presidents and the Constitution require be done by the policymakers, the Congress of the United States. I don't think the President has that authority. I think it is analogous to governments that we've seen all over the world declaring martial law and justifying them in doing whatever they wanted to do, to whomever they wanted to do it, whenever they wanted to do it. We don't think that's the American way. We don't think that's the constitutional way.
Would it constitute an abuse of power?
I don't want to comment on, it certainly could, let me put it that way. Because I don't know exactly what he's going to do. Now, let me say, he interprets this, or is alleging a crisis at the border. There is a ongoing, and has been for decades, a challenge to keep our border secure, to keep people who are not authorized to come into the United States from coming into the United States. That is an effort that I support, and I think Democrats support. I think Americans support. We need to keep our borders secure. But there is no crisis, there is no invasion, there is no clear and present danger, as the President would try to convey to the American people, to scare them and to justify actions otherwise not justified. Next.
Following up on that, if he did do this, would you guys bring a lawsuit in the House? And also, do you think the government would stay shut down while this played out, or would you try to move to reopen the government and let the courts deal with this?
We are going to daily urge and take efforts to open up the government. But shutting down government is a failed policy, said Senator McConnell. I want you to keep that in mind.
And on the lawsuit?
On the lawsuit, we haven't discussed the lawsuit because I don't know exactly. I know what the President's said, but he hasn't done anything yet. We haven't discussed a lawsuit at this point in time. Is that possible? It is.
Can I follow up on your McConnell comments? What do you think he's doing? Do you think the President has cut him out of this process? He wasn't at the White House press conference. He hasn't been.
No. He was at the meeting. The President didn't cut him out. Senator McConnell chose not to come out and talk to the press. One could conclude, this is supposition only, that believing it is a failed policy, he did not want to come out and try to defend a failed policy. I think that would be a reasonable conclusion, although that is only my speculation. I know for a fact there are many more than 7 Republicans who believe, with Senator McConnell, this is a failed, stupid policy. Whether they
Do you
will
know
vote,
for a fact that you'll have some of their votes
I
this
don't
week?
know that. So I know for a fact that there are members who agree. Whether they will vote that way, I don't know. Hopefully, we will get the government open relatively soon so that this distraction, not only for the Congress, but for the American people and federal workers. This is devastating to morale and devastating to efficiency. And what did Senator McConnell say? A failed policy. I want that all emblazoned on the front lobe of your brains. Yeah. We didn't make much progress last week. We attended a couple of meetings that the President asked us to go to. If he calls another meeting, we'll go down there as well. My staff, Pelosi's staff, Durbin's staff, Schumer's staff, White House staff, Vice President Pence met. Not much progress was made. They did come up with some specifics, but of course when they came up with specifics, they raised the ante. They didn't come towards a compromise. They went towards more rather than compromise.
I wanted to ask what you see as sort of the public tipping points, the pressure points, like you said, food stamps, TSA, obviously
Food
government.
stamps, housing we're dealing with SNAP, we're dealing with farmers' payments,
Right.
we're dealing with taxpayer refunds. The point of these bills is government does things every day that advantage the American people.
Right.
So every day that it's shut down, hundreds of millions, almost every American is adversely affected. We think these agencies ought to be open anyway, but to think that it does, the president seems to think it has no real effect. And then when he does think it has a real effect, rather than negotiate a resolution to the impasse, he says he's going to do something on his own, exercising his executive authority. How? By creating a crisis that does not exist. A problem exists, but not a crisis that would justify him acting unilaterally.
So do you see a real tipping point when it comes to public pressure? Like what do you see that would actually get the president or Republicans to change their mind at this point?
When Gingrich shut down the government for 26 days, you can't, once you keep this in mind, there was not another shutdown for the next 17 years, from 96 to 2013. Why? Because there was a very negative reaction from the American public. And the American public today overwhelmingly believes the policy being pursued. 57% of Americans think the president should compromise on the wall and avoid a government shutdown. 69% of Americans do not believe building a wall should even be an immediate priority for Congress, including 50% of Americans who do not believe the border should be a priority at all. Americans blame President Trump by 13 points, 47 to 33 in the Reuters poll, public policy polling. Americans blame President Trump by 13 points again, but it's 54 to 41. Margin expands to 20 points, 57, 37 among women. Obviously, the more cogent voters in America. Hill Harris, 70% of registered voters said they want Trump and Congress to reach some sort of compromise. Again, I told you what happened over the weekend was they escalated their demands, not compromised their demands. I can go on, but you get the point. So when is the tipping point? There came a tipping point when Gingrich decided he was losing, and we opened government up. But it's not a question of winning or losing, it's a question of rationally doing what Senator McConnell clearly indicated, abandoning a failed policy. This is McConnell. And McConnell has the ability to put these bills on the floor and say to the President of the United States, we're an independent branch. We're not the President's handmaidens. This whole argument, this whole shutting down government is because of some political demagoguery purporting to convince the American people that the Mexicans were going to pay for a wall. And so the president is fixated on walls. Thank you very much. I hope to see all of you back next week.